everybody. Welcome to D&D Optimized, the show where each episode we take a deep dive into one specific character build for D&D 5e and do our best to optimize it to give you the greatest numerical advantage for your chosen build and roll. My name's Colby. Thanks for being here. If you like crunching numbers and theory crafting and delving into character creation for D&D 5e, or if you're just looking for ideas for your next character or ideas for ways to make your current character more powerful, this show is for you. So thanks again for being here. Appreciate having you. We hit over 300 subscribers on YouTube this week, which is cool, and I was excited about that. So thank you, everybody. Also, a reminder, I do put this out as a podcast for those who don't know and are interested in just listening instead of looking, because let's be honest, you don't really get much visually from me here, other than, I've had a lot of comments lately that I look like Homelander, which I am deeply offended by because that guy is creepy and scares the bejeebies out of me. So, just because I wear blue often and have a similar hairdo and sometimes shoot lasers out of my eyes when I get upset does not make me Homelander. So, lay off. Just kidding. He's someone, you can't complain about being compared to a superhero, right? So, anyway. All right, let's get into the show. A while ago, one of my YouTube subscribers, 33, gave the ultimate challenge, the ultimate throwdown to any D&D optimizer, which is optimize a Ranger Beastmaster build. I tried to ignore it. I was scared. Everyone knows the Beastmaster is the weakest subclass in all of D&D, and the Ranger is maybe arguably the weakest character class in all of D&D, and at least that's what everybody thinks. That's what everybody says. It's terrible, right? Go on any forums, ask anyone. What's worse, they didn't want it to be a copy of Treant Monk's Beastmaster Guide. For those who don't know Treant Monk, he's a YouTuber. He does great D&D stuff. Check him out. I think Tua wanted something a little more traditional. Ranged weapon user with a wolf or a panther or something. And he can't do Unearthed Arcana, so I couldn't even use the variant Ranger build that Wizards themselves have come out with as Unearthed Arcana. And for those who are curious and don't know, look it up. Just Google variant Ranger 5e Unearthed Arcana or whatever, and you'll find this thing that Wizards of the Coast themselves put together back in, I think it was 2016, and it's quite good. It makes the Ranger much more powerful, the Beastmaster in particular. So do everything in your power to get your DM to let you use that. If you really want to go Beastmaster, apply the things that we're going to talk about here to that, and it will just be that much more powerful, and you'll be very happy and pleased, I think. Anyway, so they can't use Unearthed Arcana, so I can't even use that variant Ranger build. So that's a tall order. Now, Tua did give me one out. He said, you can heavily multi-class if you want, and even maybe just make the Beastmaster companion, the animal companion, there for more flavor and role play purposes. But you know what? No, we are better than that. I'm not gonna cop out and just do a Beastmaster dip in what's otherwise a ranged fighter or bard build or something. We're going all in. We are going to be we're get ready for a 100% dyed-in-the-wool, no multi-classing garbage, full-blooded, Legolas with a pet Beastmaster Ranger. And you know what? It's not half bad. It's not as bad as you might think if you do it right. So there are good options. There are good ways to make this work. before I get into the level build, I've got to warn you, I'm taking a giant frog as my animal companion. Now, I know that is not a wolf or a panther or a hawk. So it's not super iconic, traditional Beastmaster Ranger. The giant frog brings something very important to this build, and we'll get into it in a bit. Now, if you just can't do it, if you cannot go with the giant frog for your companion, you have to have a wolf or a panther or a hawk or whatever. Fine. Just know that your damage is not going to be as good. Your usefulness to your party is not going to be as good. You can still make it work. It's still okay. And frankly, if you use the variant ranger, giant frog's probably not going to be an option unless your DM gives you special leeway, which they probably shouldn't if they're already giving you the boon that is the Unearthed Arcana variant ranger. So anyway, we'll explain. We'll get into it. But when you hit level 17, you have to take the giant frog because it's going to make your damage competitive with just about any other build that I've done. Maybe not the upper echelon, but kind of right nicely, comfortably in the middle of the pack. So anyway, let's get into the build. At level 1, your race is not variant human, if you can believe it. I would go wood elf. Go get him, Legolas. An elf is going to be a little weaker early than the variant human, but stronger once you get past level 8. So if it's a low-level campaign, do go variant human and take sharpshooter for the free feat. If it's a low-level campaign and you just can't stomach a slimy, warty frog as your companion, go variant human, take the magic initiate wizard feat, and for your spell, take find familiar and summon an owl as your familiar. And admittedly, this is super perfect for a Beastmaster because now you get 2 pets, and one of them doesn't have to be a slimy frog, and that just is going to satisfy so many people's fantasy of just having all of these woodland creatures help them in combat. But anyway, the owl is going to be taking the help action, giving you advantage on your bow attacks, and where otherwise you were going to be using the frog for advantage. We'll get into that. And then you can take your wolf or your panther. But if you go wolf, don't go ranged, go melee, because the wolf sometimes is going to be knocking things prone, and that would give you disadvantage on a ranged attack, which is bad. If you're melee and they're prone, you get advantage, so you're going to get a big 2-handed weapon, and you're going to go strength instead of dex, and you're going to get the great weapon master feat, and that will work out fairly well. The numbers will be worse because the wolf isn't going to be knocking them prone super often, but anyway, it's a good alternative. Anyway, back to the build. So you're a wood elf, and you are fulfilling all of your elfy ranger fantasies. Ability scores. Go, assuming point buy, as always, go 15 dex plus 2 for your racial, right? So now you're 17. I'd go 14 con, because hit points are always good, and a 15 wisdom, and then you get plus 1 as a wood elf. So you're at 16, so that's great. Rangers like wisdom, and then whatever else. For your equipment, pretty standard. Get scale mail, get a longbow, whatever else you want. P.S. Once your dexterity is up to 18, if you can get some studded leather, your armor class is going to be the same as it would be with scale mail. But then you wouldn't have disadvantage on stealth checks, so that's nice. Keep that in mind as you get your dex up. You might want to switch to some nice light armor. Will give you a better armor class. For your favored enemy, favored terrain, knock yourself out. Customize it to your story or to your campaign, if possible, if appropriate, if that works with your role playing. At level 2, you get a fighting style. You're going to go archery. That gives you a +2 to hit when you use ranged weapons. That's very strong, particularly in this build. And then you get spells. The only spell I'm going to recommend that you make sure you get is Hunter's Mark. It's standard fare, but you cast it as a bonus action. It uses concentration, and then anytime you hit it with a weapon attack, you do an extra d6 of damage. So that's just a nice little bonus to your damage. At level 3, you choose your Hunter's archetype, your Ranger archetype. And you're not going Hunter, you're going Beastmaster. Of course, that's why we're here, right? So about the Beastmaster, what does that mean for you? So you get an animal companion, and you get to add your proficiency to their armor class, to their plus to hit, to their plus to damage, and to the saves that they are proficient in. That's nice. It lets them scale a little bit as you level up. On your turn, you can command them to attack, dash, disengage, or help. And that's it. And it takes your action for them to do that. And that is the main gripe that people have with the Beastmaster, rules as written, vanilla, non-unearthed arcana, Beastmaster Ranger, right? It's like you either attack or your beast attacks, and not both until later, but even then it's a little watered down. So your animal companion that you choose here, again, like I've mentioned, is going to be a giant frog. If you took the Magic Initiate feat as a variant human, instead of instead of going elf, right? You don't necessarily have to take a giant frog here. Do what you want. A giant poisonous snake is probably going to give you the best sustained damage, but if that's still not meeting your expectations or fantasies, then do what you need to do. One thing about the giant frog to keep in mind, they cannot use their swallow action because it's not technically just the attack action. Rules as written. Lame, I know. Your DM may allow it. If so, it makes the giant frog that much more powerful. But for us, why the giant frog? Because of one thing, and one thing only. If they make a successful attack, the target is both grappled and restrained. And when they are restrained, that means a lot of great things, but most importantly for us and for the rest of your party, you have advantage on all of your attacks against that target. The great thing, too, is that there is no save on that initial turn. If the frog lands the attack, the target is grappled and restrained. No saving throw. Now, on the enemy's turn, they can make a saving throw to try and break that grapple and restrain, right? But it's going to cost them their turn to do so. It's going to cost them their action. So even if they get out of it, it's still a great control feature, right? Plus, it's giving you and your companions advantage on all of their attacks until they break that grapple and restrain. Very, very powerful. So here's how combat looks for you at this level. Turn 1, you cast Hunter's Mark as a bonus action and then command your pet to attack. Assuming that they hit, they're grappled and restrained. On your next turn, assuming the target is still grappled, you're going to make a longbow attack. You're hitting with Hunter's Mark, and you're hitting decently hard here for a level 3 character, because you have advantage. If you started variant human with the sharpshooter feat, you're hitting very hard for a level 3 character. If you took Magic Initiate here and you're using a different pet, not the giant frog, don't command your pet to attack. It's just going to be lower sustained DPR for you. Maybe unless you have a giant poisonous snake, that might be better. But otherwise, instead you just have your owl take the help action and then you make your longbow attack. So anyway, at level 4, you get an ability score increase or a feat. I'm going to recommend Sharpshooter. Sharpshooter, for those who don't know, does a couple of things. One, it lets you ignore half cover or 3/4 cover for enemies, which may come into play here. Your DM may say, well, if the frog's got somebody grappled and it's just their legs sticking out of its mouth or something like that, they have half cover now, and so blah, blah, blah. But, well, you're a sharpshooter, so it doesn't matter. But also, more importantly for us, if you want to, on a ranged weapon attack, you can sort of activate the sharpshooter feature, which is going to give you a -5 to hit and a +10 damage on a successful attack, which is, of course, very strong. That's flat damage. So you're going to be a sharpshooter at level 5. You get an extra attack, but that looks different for the Beastmaster. So instead of taking 2 attacks per turn, you could, but most of the time, what it's going to mean for you is that you can command your companion to make 1 attack, and then you get to make a weapon attack, right? So at this point, what's happening is you are, on your turn, bonus action, Hunter's Mark, and then the frog attacks, assuming it's successful, they grapple, they're restrained, and then you get to make 1 longbow attack, but it's with advantage. They have Hunter's Mark on them, and it's a +10 of damage with your sharpshooter feat. So it's decent. It's decent damage. For level 6, damage report. Now, when we're crunching the numbers, I would love to assume that your enemy is always going to be restrained and grappled, that the frog is going to successfully land their attack, and then your enemy is never going to break that grapple. And then on your turn, you would be able to take 2 longbow attacks and not command your pet to attack, just keep them grappled and restrained, right? Unfortunately, the reality is that's just not going to be the case most of the time. The DC to get out of the grapple is only an 11. It's a strength check, difficulty of 11, and it never scales. Rules as written. See if you can convince your DM to let you add your proficiency to the difficulty check as well, since you're getting it on saves, on plus to hit, on plus to damage. It makes sense to me that it should be added to the DC here. Come on, DM, I'm playing a Beastmaster. Throw me a bone. But we are going to, most monsters have a decent plus strength, and the reality is, more often than not, on the creature's turn, they're gonna get out of that. The odds are that they're gonna break the grapple. They won't always. And so if they don't, then you're going to take 2 longbow attacks, and your damage is going to be even better than the numbers that I'm going to show you. Of course, the flip side of that is the frog's not necessarily always going to land their attack either. So maybe it balances out in the end, right? So at this level, damage report versus an enemy with a 10 armor class, you are going to be averaging 27 damage per round, including the damage that your frog does, right? And versus an enemy with a 15 armor class, you're going to be doing 20 damage per round. Not fabulous, not terrible, and that's where you are. Moving on. At level 7, you get a Beastmaster feature called Exceptional Training. This just says that as a bonus action, you can have your companion dash, disengage, or help. Probably not going to be using it that much because you're going to have them attacking so that they can grapple and restrain. But also their attacks are considered magical for magic resistance enemies. That's nice. At level 8, you get another ability score increase or feat. And because you're an elf, you are going to get Elven Accuracy. And Elven Accuracy will raise your dex by 1, so now you're an 18. And again, now when you make an attack with advantage, you get to roll 3d20s instead of 2. And that is fabulous. And you're going to, because all of your attacks, theoretically, are made with advantage against your grappled enemy, restrained enemy. That's going to be great for our DPR, especially considering that we're using sharpshooter and taking a -5 to our plus to hit. At level 9, you'll notice that I haven't been talking about spells a whole lot. There's some good ones. Knock yourself out. Have fun with it. The one that I will mention here is Conjure Animals. For those who watched my sustained DPR spells episode, whenever that was, episode 10, I think, I talk about this. It's very powerful, and you should probably be using it instead of Hunter's Mark for concentration. If you have the spell slot, you're not going to have a ton of high-level spell slots here, level 3 spell slots. But it's very good. It basically will allow you to summon 8. Really, you should be using it to summon 8 1/4 or lower creatures, and then you can command them to do stuff, which is awesome. The heavy asterisk drawback caveat here is that your dungeon master gets to choose what those animals are. So it could be something amazing like elk, or it could be something really lame like a bunch of kittens. So as long as you're getting 1/4 challenge rating or 1/8 challenge rating animals, have them attack, and your DPR will go way up. It's not super sustainable because, you're not going to have a lot of spell slots for this. And I can't really calculate the numbers here because it's all over the place. Again, I talk about what it looks like if it's elk or if it's owls, giant owls, I think it was, in that episode 10. So feel free to take a look at it if you want to see what the potential is. But again, it's all over the place. If your dungeon master is giving you a bunch of bats or kittens or something like that, then they are a jerk and you should find yourself a new DM. But, have them all take the help action, and then everybody in your party is going to get advantage, and that's something at least. But anyway, again, not super sustainable. Hard to quantify the DPR there, but use it when you can, and it's going to generally help your damage significantly. So damage report for level 9. Against an enemy with a 10 AC, you're going to be doing 31 damage per round on average. And against an enemy with a 16 armor class, you'll be averaging not much less, 25. Again, numbers aren't stellar, but they're respectable. At level 11, skipping ahead, Bestial Fury feature. So now your pet gets to make 2 attacks, and you make 1. So there's 3 attacks total. Your pet gets 2, you get 1. It's like a fighter, only way weaker. Come on, wizards. Why not give the hunter, I keep saying hunter, too much World of Warcraft, I apologize. Why not give the ranger the extra attack here instead of the companion? I don't know. Anyway, you're killing me. Still, it's a nice little bump to our DPR. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. At level 12, you get another ability score increase or feat. You're going to want to take Dex and finally get your dexterity capped at 20, which is fantastic. At level 13, I'll mention one other spell, and it would be Conjure Woodland Beings, which is similar to Conjure Animals, but now the things that you're conjuring are fey creatures. Everyone loves to talk about this spell because you could theoretically conjure 8 pixies, which all have the ability to cast polymorph, and so now you have an army of pixies that are turning all of your enemies into goldfish. And that would be awesome, and if you can get it to work, it'd be fantastic. Don't count on it happening all the time, but it'll be really fun if and when it does. Sprites are cool too. They're another option there. They can poison your enemies and even put them to sleep, potentially, which is not as cool or funny as turning them all into squirrels, but it's something. Damage report for level 13. Against an enemy with a 10 armor class, you are doing 42 damage per round on average, and against an enemy with a 17 armor class, you're doing 34 damage per round on average. At level 15, you get a feature called Share Spells. How this works is if you cast a spell that targets you, then it also targets your beast companion. Lots of cool stuff to do here. I actually would love to hear your ideas on what the best spells to use for this feature would be. You hear a lot about Guardian of Nature, which essentially for you would give you advantage on all of your dex-based attacks, among other cool things. Strong argument, if you're going to do this, drop the giant frog for a dex-based attacker as a companion, and then you both have advantage on all of your attacks, and you don't need the frog to grant you that advantage, which can be super powerful. Not super sustainable because it's a level 4 spell, and you don't get the added benefit of, actually restraining the target and, giving your companions advantage and all those great things that the giant frog does, but will definitely be a bump to your own sustained DPR. I would love to see someone go 5 levels into cleric and thereby have access to spirit guardians, and then you cast it on yourself and your pet gets it too, and now you both have swirling spirits around you in a 15-foot radius, doing lots of 3d8 damage to all of your attackers. That would be awesome. Of course, you couldn't do it until you were level 20 because you need 5 levels of cleric and 15 of ranger. But anyway, fun idea. Let me know what ideas you guys have. Fun options there. At level 16, you get another ability score increase or feat. Knock yourself out. Tough would be good, give you some extra hit points, maybe bump your constitution for the same thing, but also, plus to your con saves, etc. Plus wisdom, always nice for rangers. Medium armor master, maybe. Anyway, lots of good options there. At level 17, finally, we get 5th level spells, which is the cap for rangers. You want to take Swift Quiver. Swift Quiver, for those who don't know, it requires concentration, so you can no longer use Hunter's Mark. But basically, when you make an attack with a ranged weapon, as a bonus action, you can make 2 more attacks with that ranged weapon. So now your pet gets 2 attacks and you get 3. Or if your pet, if the frog successfully maintained the grapple, you could get 4, right? All with advantage, triple advantage, and sharpshooter damage. That's going to be a lot of damage. It's very nice. So at this point, damage report gets much more competitive. Against an enemy AC of 10, you're doing 80 DPR. And against an enemy with an 18 AC, you're doing 68 sustained damage per round, which is quite good. So, final thoughts. Let's be real for just a second. The Beastmaster is still the Beastmaster. I think most people, unfortunately, are right when they say that it's one of, if not the weakest subclasses in the game. They have a lot of great flavor abilities and coolness abilities. They remind me a lot of the monk. Man, I loved playing a monk in D&D 5e. So many cool things that you can do, but they're so also very niche a lot of the times. So that when you get an opportunity to use them, they're awesome. And otherwise, they don't really do much for you, right? Your favored enemy, your favored terrain, all these things. Like if you need them, they're so handy and so cool. And then otherwise, they just don't really do much for you. So that is frustrating. And then again, your damage is just tough to really get up there and be super competitive with the higher sustained DPR type classes because of the function of the way that, rules as written, the Beastmaster works with the way that their animal attacks and things like that. Again, not to say that it's useless, that it's bad, because it's not. And it can also be a lot of fun. And again, do not underestimate the value of locking down an enemy, keeping them from ever taking a turn. If your frog is always landing their hit, even if they break their grapple every turn, they're going to attack him again next turn. All your companions are going to get advantage. That's really going to help you take that target down, and then you switch and do it to somebody else. And again, that enemy is not going to be able to attack anybody, right? So that is very powerful. No, your own personal sustained DPR might not look as good, but it's not all about your own numbers, people. Have I taught you nothing? #sarcasm. So anyway, it can be a lot of fun. It is very useful, very powerful. Every party would benefit greatly by having a Beastmaster built this way in their party. And at level 17, if you can play the game until level 17, your sustained damage really is competitive. It's right in the middle of the pack with all of the other sustained DPR builds that I've done. It's quite good. Some of you may cry foul because I'm relying on Swift Quiver there, which is the 5th level spell, and you don't have a lot of those spell slots, but come on, I'm fighting with one hand behind my back here. Cut me some slack. Let's pretend that it's sustainable damage. So, but again, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you can convince your Dungeon Master to let you use the Unearthed Arcana, Revised Ranger, do it. I think you'll have a lot better time. You're definitely going to be doing a lot more damage. You just, the highlights there are your favored enemy and favored terrain are replaced with much more useful and powerful abilities, and your pet gets to roll their own initiative and take their own actions, which you control, but it doesn't require your ranger to expend any resources in order to make that happen. And they scale better too, so it's just a lot stronger. But rules as written, no UA, this Beastmaster is still very powerful and can be very fun and very useful for your party and do decent damage while they're at it and let you fulfill all of your favorite ranger fantasies. So anyway, that's the show. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate it. As always, please subscribe, like, share, comment. Let me know, how you might improve the build, or if you, if you find any mistakes that I've made or things that I'm overlooking, etc. Make comments. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Twitter. Happy to respond there. Appreciate all of the feedback and the support that we've had so far. So please keep it up, and send me an email if you want to dndoptimized@gmail.com. Particularly if you have a specific build that you would like me to take a look at it. Give me some details on what that build entails, what your goals are, things that you had in mind for it, and I will do my best to optimize it for you. Thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic day. Oh, and P.S. I keep forgetting to mention this, but again, check out, if you want to check out the math, the graphs, if you want to compare, you can see it charted out how this build compares to other sustained damage builds that I've done, or if you just want to look at the specific numbers for this particular build. Again, I put links to all of that in the show notes, in the video description, so check it out and see for yourself, how the damage compares for this versus, any other builds that I've done. Hope you appreciate that and get some use out of it. Thanks.